The ability to disassemble your sets is such a key part of LEGO's identity that many sets even include a brick separator tool to help with the process. However, sometimes LEGO puts out a set that, for one reason or another, can't be easily taken apart, and in fact, some LEGO designs are complete dead ends. Once you build them, you can never go back. I mean, just look at this dead end. As you can see, the pieces are completely locked in place. How would you take this apart? Well, one classic example of this problem within a set can be found in the LEGO Technic off-road buggy from 2021. This is a fairly standard Technic set, but it's hiding something a bit tricky that has created a problem for many builders. The issue starts at step 62, when you're asked to put a couple Technic pins into this frame. So far, so good. Next, you're supposed to attach these two L-beams to the pins. Okay, that's easy enough, but step 64 is where things get a little risky. You're now told to place a red Technic element between the L-beams to secure it in place using two red Technic axle pieces, one on each side. Do you see the problem here? Well, once these red pins are fully inserted, there's no way to remove them, and the entire assembly is seemingly locked in place. Even removing this 3 long gray Technic pin won't free the rest of the pieces, as they're still attached to the back Technic pin on the far side. So did LEGO just instruct us to build something that can't be properly taken apart? This appears to be a dead end unless you have extremely tiny fingers, or perhaps a very special tool. Luckily, this construction isn't completely impossible to disassemble, but it is quite tricky and very unconventional. To take apart this build, you first have to remove the gray Technic pin, then you'll need to bend the pieces enough to create a gap so you can pull the center part out of the black Technic pin in the back. If these parts were 100% rigid, then this just couldn't be done at all and it'd be a complete dead end. But luckily, LEGO pieces are a bit flexible, so you can force this bit apart with a little bit of finesse. But during this process, you're also adding extra stress to the bricks, which we all know that LEGO doesn't like to promote. That's the whole concept around illegal building techniques. And while this is a one-time issue in this set, there's another combination of parts that has appeared in a total of 81 sets and might just be the 2 hardest pieces to separate, found in sets ranging from the Ultra Agents Ocean HQ to the Ultimate Batmobile, the Avengers Truck Takedown, and even the Creator Ferris wheel. The 6 Studs Shooter, as it's commonly called, is a contraption of 2 very unique LEGO pieces, the 6 stud housing and the trigger element. When combined, these parts audibly snap into place perfectly, and in turn form a fun machine gun style weapon. But as I said, they are nearly impossible to take apart because the trigger part is incredibly small, and once it's inserted, there's nowhere to get a solid grip on it. What makes things even harder is that the trigger piece has these little lips at the base that prevent it from being pushed out from the back. Honestly, it seems like LEGO meant for this to be a single piece that you weren't supposed to remove once you attach it, but if that's the case, why not just ship it out pre-assembled like minifigure torsos and legs? Well, I don't have an answer to that, but I did find a few tips on how you can separate these parts. The most straightforward method is good old-fashioned brute force. Grab a pair of needle-nose pliers, grab the trigger from the front and just yank it. Although there's certainly the risk of breaking and scraping the piece, at least you'll get it out. However, a more savvy method was shown by a forum user going by BrickBuilder0937, who built this contraption which cleverly uses a few LEGO bricks to create a pressure chamber to force the piece out, resulting in a loud popping noise. Think of those Japanese soda bottles with the marble that you force out. If you've ever tried to take apart one of these stud shooters, let me know in the comments, because it's one of those pieces that you probably will never need to take apart. Plus, you can build up a collection of these to create a setup like this, which is capable of firing 30 studs in under a second. In theory, there's no limit to how many of these you could connect, as long as you have enough gears and enough patience to load all of the studs. Now, another seemingly impossible to deconstruct LEGO weapon was pointed out to me by a fan named Nicholas, as he was building a combination model from the LEGO Exoforce theme, combining these 2 sets. The instructions for this build ask you to slide this red Technic axle pin into the larger assembly, and once it's in, it's stuck. There doesn't seem to be any way to get it out again. But that's not all, because in the next step, you need to do something quite similar. This one isn't quite as impossible to remove like the axle added in step 1, as you can use another axle piece to push it all the way through, but it still would be an annoyance. However, the undisputed king of hard to separate bricks has got to be the classic combination of 2 2x2 plates. We've all done it at one point. I mean, how hard can it be? It's just 2 LEGO bricks. Well, as I'm sure you already know, the answer is very, very hard. I'm sure we've all damaged a fingernail or 2 trying trying to force these things apart. It's a universal LEGO experience that we all share. But regardless, what's the easiest way to do it? Well, it might not come as a surprise to learn that the humble brick separator excels at, well, separating bricks. But to take these two apart, you'll need a little bit more. You can either use two separators, one on top and one on bottom, to pry them apart, or you can place the stack on a larger plate and use it to get some leverage. Nonetheless, sometimes these pieces seem like they're super glued together, and while the brick separator is an incredible tool, even it has its limits. For example, placing a 1x1 tile on top of a 1x1 round stud results in a notoriously finger-busting combo. However, this too can be taken apart with enough patience and dedication. Now, while many combinations of LEGO parts can be difficult to disassemble, some are downright impossible. That's the case with several old Bionicle sets, which included these brain stalks and these head connectors. If you take a look at the instructions for these parts, you'll notice a rather large click bubble. While many bricks do satisfyingly click into place, the connection here is a bit more intense. Once these two parts are put together, there's seemingly no way to separate them without damaging one or both of the parts. But yet there's another set that's incredibly frustrating to take apart, but for an entirely different reason. The world map is, by number of pieces, the largest LEGO set ever made, with over 11,000 parts. Of those, 10,240 are either 1x1 round studs or 1x1 round tiles, meaning that taking this set apart would be even more tedious than putting it together without a special disassembly method. Luckily, LEGO anticipated this, and they included their new extra-wide brick separator, which they've been packaging with all of their large mosaic sets since 2020. However, it's not just LEGO themselves building things that are very difficult to take apart. You see, there's an entire community of LEGO fans dedicated to creating impossible to deconstruct builds known as dead ends, which typically involve a Technic frame and some carefully placed pins. For instance, this one includes 4 pieces in which the builder would secure the middle Technic piece using 2 red axles. However, once secured, it will be extremely difficult to get those red pieces back out. These pieces lay flush with the gray brick, so good luck trying to get a firm grip on the piece, and I wish you the best of luck in overcoming the static friction. Another fun example is this one, which depicts multiple Technic pieces attached together by multiple Technic pins. This would be a nightmare to try to take apart. However, one of my favorite dead ends is this build found by a Redditor going by Professional Bid, which is nothing more than a small frame and 2 tan pins. As you can probably tell, getting these out wouldn't be easy, but I'm more confused with how they got them in there in the first place. Another user named Magical Cornflake posted this immortal structure that they couldn't figure out how to disassemble. When they posted to Reddit asking for help, the general consensus was that this setup was impossible to take apart, with one user saying that they would just leave it alone and order new LEGO bricks. Well, about 5 hours later, the original poster gave us an update with a short video showing exactly how they managed to break this thing down. All they needed in the end were some incredibly fine-tipped pliers and a little bit of patience. Well, maybe a lot of patience. Technically speaking, these dead ends aren't necessarily illegal by LEGO standards. The legality of a building technique has nothing to do with how secure it is or how complicated its disassembly might be. All that legality cares about is whether or not the bricks are put under excess stress, which may cause damage or warp the pieces, such as in this visual example. This is what is referred to as an illegal building technique. Dead-end builds don't necessarily risk damaging the pieces during assembly, but trying to take them apart is a whole different story, since you may need to bend the pieces. While something like this is certainly annoying, it's not fully impossible to separate. That is, if you have a mound of patience and some very thin pliers or tweezers. Regardless, there are more complex dead ends such as this one, which are far more complicated. If you want, you can pause the video to try to figure it out. But you see, of all of the dead ends that I've discovered, this massive cube takes the cake. Looking at this, I can't imagine where to start with taking it apart, or how this builder managed to put it together in the first place. This seems to be completely impossible to take apart. But of course, no discussion of supposedly impossible to disassemble LEGO sets would be complete without mentioning the UCS AT-AT from 2021. This behemoth was highly anticipated in the months leading up to its release, but some fans were left a little disappointed when they realized that a few of the build sections seemingly couldn't be taken apart. This was such a massive controversy that LEGO was forced to step in. This wasn't the first time that LEGO had to deal with a major design flaw, such as the Wall-E set, which had previously been recalled due to poor design. But this time was different. This time, LEGO doubled down and insisted that the set was designed correctly and that it was actually an issue with builders not knowing how to properly handle the set. It was kind of a crazy situation. But what exactly was the issue and what was LEGO's proposed solution? Well, check out this video I made on the topic to get the full breakdown. Tap now to watch and subscribe to my channel for more LEGO videos.